My first thing I want to say to you actually is that this is being recorded. So you know, and I will I will be sending this out for other people to view and share. At the same time, I would really want your interaction and participation. We've got a nice small group, so we're only going to be an hour, so we've got lots to get through. Not even that now. So please, yeah, just give your input, give a bit of input, and we'll get lots out of it. Right. So just share my screen. Can you see that okay? Let's put this on full screen. There we go. There we go. Okay, so how to develop emotional intelligence. And as I said, this is being recorded. Please interact. They're my two requests. I don't think I need to go over this. I think you all know enough of this. So for the sake of time, we'll move swiftly on through into kind of what's the agenda. So we're going to look at firstly, what is emotional intelligence? How do we define it and understand it? And then why is it important? What's the impact of emotional intelligence? And after that, I'm going to give you five things to work on to help you develop your emotional intelligence. Yeah, that'll be a quick whistle-stop tour. So, what is emotional intelligence? Anybody want to have a shout out?
How we understand people?
Sorry, Hannah, say again.
How we understand people?
Yeah, what about people?
I don't know, gut, intuition, something like that. How we understand situations without having many words to it.
Yeah, kind of. Sarah, do you want to anything to add?
I'm not sure.
Well, here is a little bit of background and a few definitions. Firstly, the history to it was actually not that long ago. We only ever really talked about IQ, right? Which is intellectual quotient. And the term EQ didn't really even exist. I mean, if you think about it, even in the 1990s, and the guy who did a lot of work on this, he's still speaking. So it's not like that long ago. I certainly remember growing up that there was no talk at school about about EQ or emotional intelligence when I went to school. That is for sure. So it's not that long ago that we didn't really know what the term was. Anyhow, EQ has developed since about 1990. And that is the term emotional quotient, that people realize it's not just about intellectual quotient, but also about emotional quotient. And here are a few definitions. So the original people who came up with this term were Salovey and Mayer, and this is their definition, which is the ability to perceive emotion, to integrate emotion, to facilitate thought, to understand emotions, and to regulate emotions to promote personal growth. So the key word is emotions and understanding people's emotions and feelings. The guy who then actually really made it more a household term and popularized it was actually a chap called Daniel Goleman. And he's written a book called Emotional Intelligence. He's written loads of articles, done quite a lot of research as well. And he defines it as understanding and managing your own emotions and influencing the emotions of others. So again, it's about emotions, understanding and managing your own, and also influencing the emotions of others. And then another definition for you, or not, if you look on WebMD, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own and others' emotions. So very similar to Daniel Goleman's. So these are kind of definitions of, of emotional intelligence. And in other words, It's about, for me, it's about being good with emotions as well as good with thinking and thoughts, so that we can understand, process, manage our own emotions, understand other people's emotions, as well as our thinking about topics and things. And this is what Daniel Goleman, how he breaks it down. He breaks it down into 5 different areas. So the first area is about self-awareness, so that we have an understanding of ourselves and what drives us, what motivates us, what affects us emotionally, and that we're really in tune with our own feelings and aware of those feelings and emotions. The second bit to go with it is that we can then have a level of regulation and, dare I say, control over our own feelings. The important bit of it is actually about motivation, and that we understand what our internal motivators are, and that we are internally motivated. We have this kind of inner drive rather than this external extrinsic drive. And that's really important part of emotional intelligence. Then fourthly, empathy. Our ability to have empathy for other people. And finally, they kind of all come together actually into the final one, which is about social skills and general social skills, bringing all these things together to be able to effectively integrate and be part of a social network, a team and a group. So these are how he kind of breaks them down into 5 different sections. Any thoughts on that? Anybody? Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So if we think about that in the context of this, which is the definition of leadership, which is the ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute to the success of your organization, which in your case is your dental practice. So why is it important? Why is it so important to be emotionally intelligent? If you think about you leading your dental practice, why is it so important? What's the impact of being emotionally intelligent with your dental practice? If we bring it down to practical things rather than just theory, what would you say?
Engage with your staff better.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Engage the team. Yes. So absolutely.
Is it to be able to get your team to kind of react when you're trying to delegate?
Yep. Yeah, it's another good example. Yeah, so when we're delegating for them to respond appropriately, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd say often the team don't like verbalizing what they're feeling. So if you could pick up on their emotional feelings, it's quite a nice thing to
Yes.
before they actually say anything, really.
And what does that then lead on to as a result of that, Hannah?
Quicker conclusions.
Quick conclusions? Yep. Yeah.
Happier.
Yeah, I think you also become barriers and how you can overcome, because barriers then start to come up, don't they? On the result of that, it leads into understanding those and be able to move forward and through those emotions. I actually think that's a really good point, is that ultimately, a lot of what drives us is emotional. It's not rational. And so if we can pick up on that and work with those and help people express those, it's going to help us tremendously to make things happen and lead our team. Yeah. Anything else anybody can think of?
No, I don't think so.
No. I mean, I think there are lots of different elements to it. I think when this enables us to really connect deeply with our team members as well. And ultimately, for me, that's when people will start to go above and beyond. And as you said, Jonathan, really engage in the business, but also really engaging behind you as a leader, and want to go above and beyond for you as a leader. To go with this, yes. Sorry,
No, I
Hal.
was just gonna say, if you pick up on the sixth sense or whatever people want to call it,
Yeah.
then it's just, they feel that you really care as well, and then that way it means that you're showing your caring side, and that way they reciprocate on the other side as well, like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. So a couple of things just to add to this. I think one of the things is that it's actually scientific fact that our emotions will precede our thought. Okay. And so what that means is, in essence, our emotions can hijack our thinking. And we've all had that experience, I'm sure, where our emotions are running high about something, whatever those emotions are, and that will hijack our ability to think clearly. And there's, quite a lot of evidence around this that it just doesn't, it means we can't think with any clarity because the emotions will take over. And so therefore, if we don't have an understanding of what those are, we're not sure what's going on, it can mean that ultimately our good, clear thinking gets hijacked. So I think this is another really important thing with regards to managing our own emotions and being aware of our own emotions, and also others' emotions and how it can hijack their thinking as well. If we don't, as you said, Hannah, pick up on those things and try and help people express those things to then move into a more constructive conversation.
Yeah, I think this is something that I can relate to, like not often, but every now and then, because I'm obviously got a family, I've got grown-up children, I've got grandchildren, and occasionally, just with things that go on in normal, family life,
Yep.
health issues, it might be with one of them or one of my grandchildren. I find that I don't generally take my home life to work. My husband was in the army for 26 years, so emotions were always running high. But I do like, I mean, not often, but it has happened where there's been so much going on in my head that I'm not thinking about it, because when I go to work, it's almost like escapism. But it might just take one comment, or someone else has maybe had their emotions hijacked, that then without really thinking, my emotions have got hijacked. And that's a really good way of kind of putting it. And it's happened without having the ability to have thought about that. And it just happened. And it just happened. And then afterwards, I think that's so out of character, but it's like it happens without you having any control over it.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I think, thanks for sharing, because I think that's, and especially when it comes to families and close relationships, this and other things going on in our lives, that's where it does become challenging. But if we have a knowledge of that, because if we have knowledge of these things and an awareness of these emotions that are going on, it can just really help us, and different way of managing those emotions to kind of be aware of them. Awareness is the key. Awareness is the key.
Yeah, I think maybe also as well, when obviously if you've not had the ability to maybe have a discussion about something that was going on, I think maybe you're more likely to have your thoughts hijacked than if it's something you've previously discussed, maybe. And I think one of the things you said in one of your other webinars, Jamie, was that you have to connect with your staff on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And I think when the team does that, I think maybe people tend to react emotionally a lot less than maybe if everyone is programmed to think that, you know, home life is at home, this is work, never the two shall meet, and everything is just like, you know, we're not going to discuss anything that happens at home.
Yeah, it's just, well, for me, it's just not reality.
No.
You know, we all live in a system, and that affects us at work. You know, there's always context to all our lives. So, and I think people are happier sharing more stuff than others, but I think when we do, we show that we are, you know, we're human, and that's ultimately what that's about. All right, I'm gonna keep moving on. Hannah or Jonathan, did you have anything? Were you going to add something there? Couldn't see.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
All good. All good.
Hannah?
All good.
All good. This is a little bit of research. There are plenty of different papers out there on the topic of emotional intelligence and high performance. And this is some research, again, that Daniel Goleman did. And this was in corporates, okay? So I know this is different from a dental practice, but even so, I think it's interesting research that he analyzed the competency models from 180 big companies, big corporate companies. And he looked at which personal capabilities really drove, you know, top performance. And he saw that the factor of those factors, emotional intelligence was twice as important as things associated with IQ. And that should say star performance, not stars performance. Star performance versus average performance was actually, that difference was often down to emotional intelligence. And what to me is interesting at the moment is, I think, because we're going to have tools like AI more and more able to do all sorts of, I think, thinking, I think emotional intelligence will be the thing that stands us out even more as leaders, because a lot of stuff will be able to be done by AI, to be quite honest. So, so I think this is a good example. There's lots of other examples of just how important emotional intelligence is in terms of success from a leadership point of view. So just a little bit of research with you that I still think is relevant in leading a dental practice, and that emotional intelligence element. Any questions around that?
No.
All right, so with that kind of bit of background, now I'm going to give you 5 ways to work on your emotional intelligence, which, yeah, they may seem obvious, they might not do, but here we go. So the first one is this phrase. And when I first heard this phrase, I was like, oh, I really need to do some work on this. Because I always thought I was fairly, you know, I always thought I had fairly decent emotional intelligence. And then I was thinking about it, and this topic of becoming emotional literate. So what I mean by this is, can you describe and articulate your own emotions? Just plugging my PC in. Yeah, so can you describe and articulate your own emotions? Actually, when I thought about it, I was like, I'm not sure I can very well. Because I think sometimes when we ask people about, you know, how they're feeling about something, they may say something like, well, it's rubbish or it's terrible. That's not actually how they're feeling about it. Do you get what I mean? They're saying it's terrible or it's crap or whatever, but that's not actually, excuse my language, that's not actually how they're feeling about it. And it's quite difficult. And that's what I used to do, actually. It's quite difficult to actually go, no, what actually how am I actually feeling, right? And that is not that as easy as it might sound. And so the first tip I have is to work on becoming emotionally literate. And the way to do that from my side is to literally just think at any moment in time, how am I feeling? And to help with this, you can use something like this. Anybody use the Calm app? Anybody ever use Calm app at all?
No.
Calm app is just lots of lovely exercises for meditation and mindfulness, and it provides this feelings wheel. And I think this is actually really quite helpful because it breaks it into a certain place. Then you can also go, well, actually, as you say, for example, I might be feeling happy, all right? And then you can go, well, actually, if I try and be a bit more specific about that, perhaps I'm feeling optimistic. That's how I feel at the moment, actually. I'm feeling happy because I'm feeling optimistic and hopeful, actually, because a couple of things have happened today that led me to actually, that's how I'm feeling right now at this second. So, yeah. So I think we can use something like very simple, but to actually then write that down and use it to just go, well, that's how I'm feeling. Perhaps do it first thing in the morning and then be aware of, well, actually, how am I feeling? Does anybody look at this? Anybody want to say how they're feeling now?
I struggle with this. I'm emotionally illiterate.
I'm going to say surprised.
Okay. Very good. So surprised, yeah. And then can you work it down from there, Sarah?
And then I'm going to say excited.
Yeah.
And then if I was to go to the last wheel, I'm going to say eager.
Very good.
Because I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah, great. So that's driven by having a new kind of little tool to use. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. I'll send this out. I'll send there's no copyright issue because there's a PDF that you can just download. So I'll send it out to you.
Yeah.
Hello, Jonathan. Well, anything from that? You want to be brave enough to?
Me?
Either. You don't have to. Don't feel obliged, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'll have a go.
I know you normally have a go at everything.
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
With my next colour in the middle wheel, does that
Yeah.
colour have to be one of the ones coming out from happy, like between playful and optimistic?
Normally, but honestly, I don't think it has to, you don't have to, it's to help. So if you feel something else, just have a look and see what words resonate. I think it just,
I'm always optimistic, trusting.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
And then in the outer wheel there, that was cheeky, Jonathan. Confident, respect. You see, I'm thinking, aren't I? It's not emotional. I'm more a thinky person, but confident.
Yeah, very good. I think it's a good point though, Jonathan. Sometimes we kind of think too much about it. It's actually almost feeling. Hannah will laugh because my wife talks a lot about this. Is how do you actually feel in your body, right? Trying to feel it in your body. That makes sense rather than think. Hannah?
Yeah, mine is peaceful.
Perfect. Great. Excellent. So I think it's as simple as it sounds simple to pick this out and then pick moments in the day just to start describing how you're feeling. But what will then come from it as well is your ability to ask others about their feelings about specific topics and recognize when it's an emotion or whether they're just going, well, I'm feeling like that doesn't work, that's actually not a feeling. Do you get what I mean? And saying, so no, actually, how are you really feeling about it? And chat, you know, getting, because that then becomes more emotive, and that leads into that part we talked about, is that connection piece and really connecting with our people. So tool number one, feelings wheel, and working on your own emotional literacy. And it's funny, when I talk about this, I even get a little bit, you know, having been, as you know, brought up in a rugby world, this sort of stuff is it sort of makes me laugh a bit, because it wouldn't have been where the typical rugby changing room would have been positioned. But actually, I know a lot of the people, you know, it just wasn't around in those days, and so it's so relevant when it comes to leadership, actually. Yeah, I'm going to go off on a tangent there about Eddie Jones and rugby, so we won't do that, otherwise we'll be there forever. Okay, so personality profiling. I probably don't need to spend too much time on this. This is my second tip. Hannah and Jonathan, I've done personality profiles with them both, and Sarah, I don't think we have, but to do personality profiling for me is a really useful emotional intelligence bit of work to do, because it just creates an awareness about where you typically sit, how you compare to others, and what's your defaults, what are your default strengths and weaknesses, and where you perhaps, you know, are less comfortable being. And that there's all sorts of personality profiles, and I recommend doing as many as you possibly can, because they all help. I provide one which is this everything, which is DISC, and it's just, it is really helpful to give you an awareness of where you sit. Yeah.
It's one of my
and
crutches, that is, Jamie.
Yeah, I know you're
DISC, because I haven't
Yeah.
got that emotional, you know,
Yeah.
intelligence, and, you know, by knowing where my staff are, and then
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, it's got that brilliant bit that helps you communicate with other people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll look at that and think, what is it that they're after off me?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Brilliant.
crutch.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I know we've talked about it a lot in the past, and it's understand, it helps us understand, and also where other people are. Yeah. So this is a little tool that you might remember just to help us. Sarah, have you ever done a personality profile, Sarah?
I don't think so.
At all? No?
I can't remember if I have.
So we'll just do a little exercise with you then. So if I was to ask you, are you more fast-paced and outspoken, or cautious and reflective? What would you say?
Fast-paced and outspoken.
Okie dokie. So that means you're more likely to be in the upper half of the circle. And are you more trusting and accepting, or accepting and warm, or more questioning and skeptical? What would you say?
I think accepting and warm.
Right. So that would mean in this model that you're most likely probably to be actually somewhere where that spot is. Depending on how strongly you are, you're probably up in that I segment, I expect. If you was to do a full profile, it'll give you the full detail, but it's useful because you can also then help diagnose other people. So if we go back to this, outgoing, optimistic, enthusiastic, high-spirited, and lively is what they would generally say for a kind of I style. That resonate at all or not? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can influence people.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So.
Where are you, Jonathan?
I'm very optimistic.
Yeah.
Where
so I was going to ask Hannah and Jonathan, can you guess each other, actually?
Oh, now there's a challenge.
Actually, let's do it one at a time. So Jonathan, yeah, you try and diagnose Hannah. So is Hannah fast-paced, outspoken, or cautious and reflective? It's quite tough in 30 minutes to do that.
Yeah. I will go cautious and reflective.
Hmm.
And I think he's accepting and warm. So I think he's like a sort of an S, somewhere over there. Am I totally wrong?
ID,
Hello?
I'm an ID. So where Sarah is.
Oh, okay. So are you on the accepting and warm side?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you see. Okay,
You're all right.
lovely.
That's good.
And then what about Jonathan then, Hannah and Sarah? Would you say
Oh,
fast-paced, outspoken, or cautious and reflective?
definitely accepting it more, I'd say.
I think Jonathan's cautious and reflective.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say questioning and skeptical, only because he said he was quite trusting, but he's not a very emotionally connected person, so I'm not sure he would be accepting and warm.
Correct.
So
As in-
yeah, I mean, you're very good. So it's a circle, it's a disc. I'm
Yeah.
right out on the very edge of the disc, and I'm on the border of C and D,
Wow.
right out on the edge. So I'm as questioning, as skeptical as you could possibly be. And I'm not fast paced, I'm not moderate paced, I'm sort of bang in the middle on the edge. And you know, I just don't have the accepting and warm side. So I have to try and do that, but it doesn't come, it's just not me.
And I think that's a really important point about personality profiles. It gives you an awareness about where you sit as your natural kind of default, but you can all do all of it, right? And as you say, Jonathan, I know that's hard work for you, but you're still very capable of it, and I've seen that with you and your team. So it's that's the point. We have an awareness of where we're most comfortable, and then it makes us realize when we have to sort of be a bit more conscious and flex a bit into a different space where we're perhaps not quite so comfortable. So personality profile.
When you look at the shading on my profile, it goes from there, it swings right round into I.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a tiny bit of S. So I've learned a few tricks, but it's not my natural state.
Yeah. All right, so that's the kind of second tool is using this. I mean, doing any personality profile, highly recommend. But something like this just gets us thinking about where do we sit compared to where other people sit, and the difference between people. So the next one is what I call doing work on developing your intrinsic motivation. So the motivation bit that comes into emotional intelligence is understanding what are our kind of intrinsic, what's the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? What do I mean by that, firstly?
Well, intrinsic motivation sounds to me like it's sort of like within, like it's naturally within, and like it's something you maybe do without really thinking about it, maybe.
Yep. Perfect. It is.
Is it almost like nature and nurture for your emotions? Some sort of natural and you've got it, and then the rest is what the world's imposed on you.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. It's not quite how I see it, and I'll tell you why, Jonathan. I can see why you would think that, and to an extent I think that's true. But to me, there's a subtle difference in it, in that I think we can do some work on our intrinsic motivation, which therefore to me wouldn't mean it's entirely nature versus nurture. Extrinsic motivation is essentially things outside of our control that motivate us to do things. So, for example, we are motivated as an example, the typical one is sometimes by money. We do things to get some money, right? And that's an extrinsic motivator. Bonus schemes, commission schemes, these sorts of things, but also on the negative side of things. So we do things because we don't want to get fired, we don't want to lose our jobs, we don't, through fear almost on the external environment. So they are extrinsic factors that are driving us to do things. But intrinsic is just things within us that we just want to do things for the sake of doing it because we feel it's the right thing to do. It's things that we enjoy just for the sake of doing it almost. And the thing is about intrinsic motivation, it's more consistent because it's just like a consistent fuel within us. Whereas within extrinsic, and this is very true with team members, we have to keep piling on the extrinsic motivation, otherwise it stops. And there's typically a burst with the extrinsic. You give a bonus, and then there's and then you have to give another bonus, right? So that's the kind of nature of it. So that's why emotional intelligence refers to this kind of internal motivation, which tends to also be much better when it comes to being resilient in difficult situations. It tends to be more, because we're able to just sustain it more when things are really difficult. So intrinsic motivation, I think one of the things about intrinsic motivation is that I say when we can work on it is about really understanding some things about what, I don't know where, is it working on it? I think it's working on it. It's working on it by having a deep understanding of what it is that motivates us intrinsically. That's what I mean by working on it when I refer to that, Jonathan. I don't know if that makes sense. So as an example, what are our own personal values? What's our own kind of core purpose? Don't know, anybody listen to Simon Sinek and all his stuff around purpose? He does loads of... Sorry, Hannel?
Start with your purpose.
Start with why. Start with why was his first book. And it came to prominence really with companies to say, well, what's the purpose of your business? What's the purpose of your dental practice? What are we here to do? But actually, when you read his stuff, and especially now he's done Find Your Why, where he talks about everybody, both individually, knowing what their own purpose is. And this is a big question and quite a kind of, deep question, which is essentially, what are you here on this earth to do? That's the question. You never really succeed in achieving your purpose, but you're always striving for it. Don't know if does that make sense? That kind of makes sense. And I think it's something that you'll probably carry on doing even when you're not working, because it's something that is just driving you, that you always want to add to the world, so to speak. And it takes quite a lot of getting your head around, but I think it's a really great thing to kind of understand. And if we understand this, it helps us kind of tap into that and know that, like, every morning, well, no matter what's happening, I'm still doing this, and this is what I'm here. This is kind of what I'm here to do. So values, purpose, and vision. Where am I heading? Where do I want to get to? I think if we know what all these things are, it does give us a kind of, it helps us tap into our intrinsic motivators. And then it's about pulling them out, being aware of them, but also putting ourselves in positions where that's going to be really helpful, or we can fulfill those values, purpose, and vision. That's a bit cryptic. Does it kind of make sense about working on our intrinsic motivation?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
If you want to, I mean, values is something that I spend lots of time on with teams, as Hannah and Jonathan know, but I also think it's worth looking at from a personal point of view. And there'll always be a kind of a tension between the two, but I think looking at this for ourselves helps us develop our kind of emotional intelligence, because we know what we're about, and I think that we're happy with that, and that's the same with our strengths and weaknesses. This is kind of us, and it gives us this authenticity that this is what we kind of stick to no matter what, especially when it comes to values. And I think that gives a level of confidence, and people like confidence when it comes to leadership. And if we know what these things are, it just gives us a kind of inner presence. They call it executive presence in the corporate world. And to me, that's what this is that we know ourselves really well. We know what we're about, and we know where we're good, where we're not so good, and we're okay with that. You know, we don't have to hide it. We're not trying to play games. That is who we are, and we're fine about that. And we share that with people, actually.
Yeah, I think so. I think I can connect to that.
Can you tell us more, Sarah?
Pardon?
Tell us more. You can connect to it.
Yeah, because I had a lot of situations where, obviously, like, you know, with my husband being in the army for such a long time, you know, built up a lot of resilience. And I think, like, you know, I very much know my own strengths and weaknesses, and I'm at peace with that. I think I always know pretty much why I'm doing something, and I, you know, and why I continue to do, you know, work the way I do. So I think I am pretty much in tune with my intrinsic emotion. And I think I think for me, working on it is not trying to improve it, but maybe understanding how to maybe not feel like I've got to do it to the max, maybe.
Okay. As in, what do you mean to the max? As in, too committed to it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because sometimes I don't know when to stop.
Right.
You know, if I'm working on a, you know, if I'm working on a project at work, I want to, or even like in my own social life, or, you know, I always want to kind of investigate things to the nth degree.
Right.
I think it's so amazing that you've spotted that about you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just in that recognition in its own right, and that's, I think, what all these things lead to. Yeah.
But I know it's not always a good thing, like not knowing when to just think, well, I've done enough.
Yeah. Sounds like Jonathan can resonate with that.
Oh, yeah, bloody hell. Not knowing when to stop. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, as Hannah says, it's great to have
fractionally better at it.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on. This next one, I know will sound blatantly obvious, but it's so important, and actually it is a real skill to have really good listening skills. And you know, there's a couple of things that we can do, I think, to really work on this that sound easy but are not. The first one is, do not interrupt other people. And the number of conversations that we all have where we interrupt somebody else is a lot. If you really observe it, it's really hard not to interrupt. Really hard. Be fully present. That means, you know, fully present both in not thinking about other stuff, but also laptops, phones, all these other things. Be 100% present when you're with your people. One thing I always really want to point out is that often people want to be heard. They don't actually want a solution. And often we go into solution mode straight away. We'll solve, I'll do this. Have you done this? Have you done this? And I'm sure we've all had it when people do that. And actually you're like, of course I've bloody done that. Of course I've done that. They don't actually want to know a solution because they're and they always feel a bit frustrated about you giving a solution. Often or not, they just want to be heard. And so I encourage you not to jump in with solutions too quickly, at least, but to really just ask, tell me more about it and just listen to them. And a lot of time they'll actually start to talk to their own solutions, actually, if you just give them the space to actually and be really present with them and encourage them to elaborate. So really watch that, not giving solutions, that you're to check that you're not giving solutions too early, and to allow the person to actually really express what they're saying and to give them a space and let them be heard. And sometimes you won't have to do much else, actually. So and then finally, what do you notice? And this is what I call sensory acuity. So Hannah, you talked about at the beginning, just what can you pick up when you're having conversations with people? What's going on that they're not saying? And there's always there, often you can pick up, it's even just a sense. You just notice that when you say something, they're kind of, the whole demeanor can either go, whoa, or it can be like suddenly they kind of, the whole demeanor changes. Well, notice that. And even ask them about it. Oh, I noticed you really, what do you like about that? What is it? When we notice these things, we can call people out about it and bring it out of people a bit more. So sensory acuity, be really, really present, and just what do you notice in that conversation? Not so listening to people and just paying attention to people. So I wouldn't underestimate, it sounds obvious, to be fully present with people, to really do it, to really listen is hard work. It's really hard work, actually. But if you do it, it's immensely impactful.
Yeah, that sounds like good tips.
Harold, Jonathan, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think the people around me know if they want. They almost insist that I be present because they see the signs that I'm sort of like I'm not present.
Yeah.
And they insist on that I'm focused and I'm engaging and I'm listening.
Yeah.
Because I'm so good at not doing it.
Yeah. That's good. That's great though, isn't it? They kind of keep you accountable to that, right? And
well,
because actually
it's not only that, they understand that's one of my weaknesses, don't they?
Yeah.
I think Jonathan and I are probably opposites, different sides of the same coin, because I think, like with Jonathan, I feel like he probably wants to zone out because he's not very good at connecting people with emotionally.
Correct.
I'm really good at the whole listening thing and being present, but then I want to jump in with a solution.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes too quick to because I want to fix everything. Because I'm a very emotional and I've got a lot of empathy, probably sometimes too much. I want to jump in and give them solutions rather than thinking, well, no, they'll come up with the solution.
Yeah.
So I think we're probably quite opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because of where you'll want to be giving, you want to help, basically, Sarah, right? And actually we think that by fixing it, we're going to help. And actually the thing we can probably do most that will help is just to give them space and to really listen.
I think I need to listen more and try to fix less.
Very good. Hannah, anything to add on that one?
No, I agree with the team.
Well, you got to head off as well, haven't you, Hannah? You got another call, I know, at 8 o'clock.
Well, I'll stay on for a few more minutes.
This is the last one. So last one is about creating structures of reflection. I talk about this a lot. I think in the dental world in particular, we don't do enough of this. I think because we want to make sure that the surgeries are full, everything's running, and that we're not wasting surgery time. And as a result, we don't separate off time to actually step out of it and take a moment to reflect on what's going on, the emotions that we're all experiencing, what's happened, how we developed, all these sorts of things. And I think the more we can do this, but not just for our practice, but for ourselves. So create time to, step out of it in a place that will enable us to actually reflect on situations, even think about what are the emotions I was experiencing in that situation. What can I learn from that? What can I tell from that? So I think when we reflect, not just to reflect about what we thought or what our actions were, but actually what emotions did I experience at that specific moment with that in that specific situation. And this kind of relates to, I think we can ask people about their emotions. We tend to say, what do you think? So what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What should we do? Whereas actually we could also say, well, how are you feeling about this? And as I said earlier, kind of ask when they say, just checking that they're actually then giving you some feelings rather than action.
Mm.
So anybody, I've always mentioned this book, which is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, best-selling book, and the reason for, the reason why reflection is so important is these different systems that our brain operates in, and we need to engage our brain and slow it into this kind of more conscious thinking. And the way to do that is to step out and give ourselves that space to do it. Because everything's happening so fast, we just go, and it leads to these unconscious kind of automatic decisions, which we need to do because there's so many decisions that we have to make. But actually, we also need to have time to kind of step out and become more, it's a very human thing that we can actually reflect on stuff and be aware of it. But we only have so much capacity to do that. But to make time to do that.
Mm.
Okay, so my final thought is that I think sometimes also with leadership it's the same, and I think with emotional intelligence we kind of think it's kind of nature versus nurture, and it is both, all right? But we can definitely work on our emotional intelligence, and hopefully some of these bits are giving you a few ideas, tips to work on. I think that from my side, leadership can also be learnt, and that a lot of what I do on these certificate and my diploma is related to emotional intelligence. And I think that's probably fairly obvious from the sorts of things I talk about. Yeah, it's a big part of both those courses as well. We cover a lot of these sorts of things. Yeah, I think that's it.
Really
I don't.
helpful.
Any questions to finish with? Any thoughts?
No, it's definitely given me some things to think about. I think that was really helpful.
Great.
Yeah, it's
Right.
definitely really helpful. So yeah, even things you think you knew, it's a nice way to actually see it being explained. So thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for joining. I know it's always difficult to get to things, just super busy, all of you, I know. So I hope it's useful. I will be sending out a recording.
Yeah, great.
Do you want any of you want CPD points, by the way?
Yeah.
For it?
Yeah, wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll send you a little survey out, and then if you complete that, it'll be short, then I'll get you a little certificate as well. So you've got that to go with it as well.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.